If you missed a Medicare deadline, you might be panicking right now. Or maybe you're thinking you're fine and that there won't be any consequences. Well, I'm here to tell you that both of these reactions are wrong. Missing a Medicare deadline doesn't always mean you're locked out, but you're not exactly safe either. And what it actually means depends on what deadline you missed. It also depends on what kind of coverage you have and whether your healthcare needs have changed. But what most people don't realize is that there are backup options built into Medicare. And you should use those backups because doing nothing can leave you with a plan that doesn't necessarily cover your needs, or you can also be hit with a penalty that you'll end up paying for as long as you stay on Medicare. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can avoid all that. I'm going to walk you through what happens when you miss a Medicare deadline. I'm going to show you what backup options are available to you, and I'll explain when you need to act to get that second chance. Hi, my name is Eric, and I wanted to start by talking about two common traps that people fall into in Medicare. And the first one is assuming that everything is just fine with their plan. Many people think their current plan just automatically rolls over to the next year, that if they don't get any letters saying that anything's wrong or anything with their plan, no news is good news, and so they just keep rolling into the next year. And I get it, when it seems like nothing's changing, it's easy to just let it slide. But that's not necessarily how Medicare Advantage plans and Plan D type plans work. Every year, these plans can change their costs, networks, formularies, and benefits. So the plan you had last year may be very different from the plan you have in the upcoming year, even if on the surface it seems like nothing has changed. And the second mistake is actually the opposite. Many people assume that if they miss a deadline, they're automatically stuck and there's nothing they can do about it. So these people just stop worrying and just wait until the next enrollment period to go ahead and make changes. But what many people don't realize is that Medicare actually has backup plans for those who do miss their deadlines. You just have to know what these backup plans are and which ones apply to you specifically. And before you decide which backup option to use, you need to first realize which deadline you actually missed. Because there are several Medicare deadlines and they don't all work exactly the same. The first one, for example, is the initial enrollment period. This is the 7-month enrollment window around your 65th birthday when you first sign up for Medicare. Now, if you miss this one and you don't qualify for a special enrollment period, this can actually be a pretty serious situation because typically you'll then have to wait for the general enrollment period in order to enroll. And your coverage typically won't start until the month after you've signed up. On top of that, you could be facing a late enrollment penalty that adds 10% to your premium for every 12-month period that you missed. And unfortunately, that penalty often stays with you for life. Now, the second deadline that you should know about is the annual enrollment period. And this is the window from October 15th to December 7th when current Medicare beneficiaries can switch their Medicare Advantage plans, change Part D drug plans, or move between original Medicare and a Medicare Advantage plan. And don't worry, if you miss this deadline, you're typically not facing some kind of penalty. But what you may be facing is something called a lock-in. And that's where your current plan will just automatically roll over to the next year. And you'll typically be stuck with it until the next annual enrollment period. Now, if you did miss your annual enrollment period, there is something called a special enrollment period, and that's where things can get a little bit interesting. And that's because if you're currently on a Medicare Advantage plan and you miss your December 7th deadline, you may actually have a second chance. And this second chance is called the Medicare Open Enrollment Period, and it runs from January 1st to March 31st every year. And during this time, you can switch from your current Medicare Advantage plan to perhaps a different Medicare Advantage plan, or drop your current Medicare Advantage plan and return to original Medicare. And if you do that, you can also typically add a standalone Part D drug plan. However, be aware there are some limits to this. And the biggest limit to this is that you only get a one-time change during this period. So for example, if you change your plan in January and then have a change of heart in March, you're stuck with that plan you made during your first change. And this window is only open to those who already have a Medicare Advantage plan. So if you're on original Medicare, this backup doesn't actually apply to you. And now the second backup plan, or backup to the backup, is where things start to get a little bit more personal. Medicare has something called a special enrollment period, or SEP. And these special enrollment periods are triggered by specific life events. So some of these life events that can trigger or open a special enrollment period for you are things such as moving to a new address outside of your current plan's service area, which typically opens a 2-month special enrollment window where you can enroll into a new plan. Another trigger is losing Medicaid eligibility, in which case you typically get a 3-month special enrollment period in which you have to find a new plan. Another trigger is moving into or out of a nursing home or rehabilitation center, and this special enrollment period typically lasts for as long as you're there and then 2 months after you leave. Another trigger is if a 5-star Medicare Advantage plan or Part D plan becomes available in your area. You may be given a one-time opportunity to switch over to that plan. And lastly, if you have Medicaid or qualify for an extra help program that helps you with prescription drugs, you're typically not locked into any annual schedule at all. And you can typically change your plan once per month. Now, those are going to be the most common triggers for special enrollment periods, but there are other SEPs for things like natural disasters, people who feel like they were misled and signed up for the wrong plan, and people whose plan had their Medicare contract terminated. And the key thing to understand here is that SEPs and special enrollment periods are not automatic. You have to know whether or not you qualify and then take action within a certain window once that special enrollment period is triggered. So now you know that missing a Medicare deadline doesn't necessarily mean that you're stuck. You often do still have options, but you can't just assume that doing nothing is totally safe. So how can you figure out what you can do and when you need to do it? Let me go ahead and break down exactly what you need to know. If you missed a deadline, here's what you need to do. First, figure out which deadline you missed. Was it the initial enrollment period when you first became eligible? Was it the annual enrollment period in December? Or is it that you didn't act on a recent life change? Because each one has different consequences as well as different backup options. Second, write down any major life events from the last few months. Did you move? Did you lose employer coverage? Did your Medicaid status change? Or did you enter or leave a nursing home? If any of these apply to you, you may qualify for a special enrollment period. And in that case, the clock may already be ticking. And third, review your current plan. Find your annual notice of change or ANOC letter that's typically sent to you in the fall. Check whether your doctors are still in network. Make sure that your drug tiers haven't changed at all, and review any other change in cost for the upcoming year. If something has changed and you now feel like maybe you're on the wrong plan, it's important to know. And fourth, get free help. You do not have to figure all this out on your own. Your State Health Insurance Assistance Program, or SHIP, offers free, unbiased Medicare counseling in every state. They're not tied to any single insurance company, and they can help you figure out exactly what options you have. You can also call 1-800-MEDICARE directly. But now here's what you should take away from this video. Missing a Medicare deadline is not uncommon. It happens all the time, and the good news is this isn't always the end of the road. If you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, you have a second chance to switch plans during the open enrollment period from January through March. And if something has changed in your life, you may even have a special enrollment period. And if you're on Medicaid or the Extra Help program, you may have even more flexibility than you realize. Now, the only bad news is that none of these backup plans help you if you don't know about them. So if you think you may have missed a deadline or you feel like your current plan isn't right for you anymore, don't just wait for the next annual enrollment period. Find out what options you have right now and make sure to act sooner rather than later. Now, if all this isn't enough to convince you to take action right now, check out this next video about Medicare's late enrollment penalties and see how you could be stuck paying them for the rest of your life. And even more importantly, how you can avoid these penalties.